Part 12. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 111. Xiaopinggan hid in the ventilation duct, looking at the huge spider nest and countless spider eggs, but his heart couldn't help but sink. The space below is really too big. The fireball technique and elite slave soldiers that he can summon with his current divine power cannot clean the things below at all. They can only clean a very, very small part. They cannot do anything. How effective it is, and it can also alert others. Because Xiaopinggan saw that there were 7 or 8 magic fire spiders patrolling inside the spider nest. The Requiem banner can hold a requiem for the corpses here and use the corpse exorcism technique to take away the corpses, but it is of no use because there are more big spiders outside. Even if I can control these corpses, I can't take them away. Take away. Xiaopinggan watched for a while, then climbed back along the ventilation duct and returned to the building. There are 2 shelters of the same level in the city. After returning to the building, Xiaopinggan quietly left the building and continued to explore. After consuming 3 elite slave soldiers to lure away some demon fire spiders and demon liquid spiders that were blocking the way, Xiaopinggan also used the same method to crawl into the other 2 super large shelters and take a look inside. Fortunately, one of the other 2 super large underground shelters is occupied by demon rats. There are many demon rats hidden in the shelter, but they are not as scary as here. There are also some demon fire spiders in the other underground shelter, but those magic fire spiders did not lay eggs, but just used the shelter as an ordinary underground lair. While exploring the second shelter, Xiaopinggan passed by the municipal gymnasium. He was moved by his thoughts and ran directly to the community where he stayed before. He saw that his pickup truck was still parked in the original parking space, but it was just left behind. After removing some dust, the vehicle was not damaged at all. Xiaopinggan directly received his pickup truck into the space warehouse. The size of the pickup truck is smaller than that of a magic fire spider, and it is easy to store it in the space warehouse. Before dawn, Xiaopinggan exited the city and returned to the meeting point with Manzijan. These days, in addition to the base of the Logistics Special Equipment Department, the 2 of them found 2 other places to stay outside the city. The gathering place this time was at a bus terminal outside the city. The hub station is full of buses. Some buses have been burned to only a shell. Some buses have broken windows. The iron doors of the hub station are crooked to one side because there are iron sheets and cold vehicles everywhere. The mechanical equipment, those magic rats and big spiders are not interested in these things, so there are much fewer magic rats and big spiders wandering here than in other places. There are several office buildings and vehicle repair workshops in the hub station. The meeting point for the 2 of them is in a messy conference room upstairs in the repair workshop. Seeing Xiaopinggan return, the black dragon pounced on him and kept licking Xiaopinggan's palm. Manzijan could only look on with envy. He liked the black dragon very much, and the black dragon had almost become his partner. But it was a pity that he was not a summoner. The black dragon always had a master. Xiaopinggan touched the black dragon's head, and the black dragon obediently ran down to guard. "Sir, have you found anything?" Seeing Xiaopinggan's face looking a little serious, Manzijan asked. "The situation is more serious than we thought. I finally know where the corpses were hidden by the monsters." Xiaopinggan told Manzijan what he saw in the underground shelter. There may be hundreds of thousands of eggs of demon fire spiders and demon liquid spiders in the spider nest. Manzijan's expression changed after hearing this. If the spiders in that spider nest are completely hatched, the consequences will be unimaginable. Then the entire Xinquan will be completely destroyed. We will never be able to take back the city in the future, and even many places around Xinquan City will be infested with those monsters in the future. "The world?" Manzijan asked. As a soldier, in addition to revenge, Manzijan has been thinking about how to take back the lost Xinquan City from those monsters, and then drive those monsters away and wipe out. I'm afraid that's the case. I think it won't take long for those spider eggs to hatch. Now there are only two ways to destroy the spider nest. The first way is to find other summoners and troops and formulate a plan. Enter the city in an assault, and completely destroy the monster nest before other spiders and demon rats in Xinquan City react. Sir, this may be difficult, Manzijan thought for a moment and shook his head. The people we meet these days are all trying to escape. There may be some separated warriors and a few summoners outside the city. But it takes too long to find and gather those people, and even if we gather them, those people may not listen to us. Xiaopingan also nodded, so now there is only the second way. Let's find powerful bombs and weapons, bring the bomb into the spider nest, detonate it, and destroy the spider nest. At this time, since manpower is limited, we can only rely on weapons. As long as we don't encounter monsters, the powerful thermal weapons are actually very terrifying to kill those monsters. Manzijan pondered for a moment. He was the one with the most say on this issue. To destroy that spider nest, the most effective weapons are thermobaric bombs or cloud explosive bombs. These two weapons are the most powerful weapons in the army's hands. As a conventional weapon, if the thermobaric bomb is detonated inside the underground shelter, it can collapse the underground shelter. If it is a cloud-burst bomb, it is detonated internally. The cloud explosive agent in the cloud-burst bomb can be detonated in the air after being detonated. As fuel, it can produce high temperatures and flames of over 2,500 degrees for a long time, which can destroy the eggs in the spider nest. The 87th Legion should have these two kinds of bombs. Yes, Manzijan nodded. Where can I get it? There used to be these two bombs in the ammunition depot at Qingfeng Air Force Airport 60 kilometers north of Xinquan, but I don't know what the current situation is at Qingfeng Air Force Airport, and the weight and volume of these two bombs, they are not small, and the lightest one weighs more than a ton, Manzijan said, gritting his teeth. If we can find these two bombs, install them on the car when the time comes, and we will make a plan, sir. You lure away the spiders in that spider nest, and I'll rush in with my car and detonate it. I'll risk my life to kill that spider nest. Xiaopingan glanced at Manzijan. As long as I find the bombs, I will have a way to send them in. Let's rest first. When it gets dark, we will set off and go to Qingfeng Air Force Airport to have a look. Yes. The two of them eat, rest, and wait until dark before taking action. During the day, two magic rats ran around in the yard of the hub station and left again after not being noticed. The two of them waited until dark, left this footing, and began to run toward Qingfeng Air Force Base, 60 kilometers north of Shinkawashi, under the cover of darkness. Driving was too ostentatious and would attract the attention of monsters, so Xiaopingan chose to walk and take the wild route. Along the way, they encountered 3 magic fire spiders and 7 magic rats, and they were killed by the two of them with tacit cooperation. For Xiaopingan, it was another gain. Manzijan didn't take many bodybuilding pills, but his physical strength improved significantly. When Xiaopingan was not in a hurry, he could barely keep up with Xiaopingan. After several small-scale battles and a night of traveling, at around 4 o'clock in the morning, the two finally arrived outside the Qingfeng Air Force Airport that Manzijan said. The airport is built on an open flat land in a valley. On both sides of the airport are green mountains like sharp edges, with a bit of a chilly atmosphere. There are 3 magic fire spiders and more than a dozen magic rats wandering on the runway of the airport. Fences and barbed wire outside the airport were damaged in many places. Several hangars were somewhat damaged, and there were several burned fighter planes and a transport plane on the tarmac. The control tower, radar station, and other airport facilities seemed to have experienced a fire, with varying degrees of damage. Around the airport, there are also some barracks and other buildings. The two of them were lying on the wilderness observing. Some fighter planes should have been ordered to fly away in time. Manzijan observed the airport with night vision goggles. There used to be many more fighter planes here than now. "Where is the ammunition depot at this airport?" Xiaopinghan asked. "The ammunition depot is built underground at the airport. I have been here before." Xiaopinghan used his remote viewing ability to take a look. The underground ammunition warehouse here was deeper and he couldn't see through it with his remote viewing ability. However, looking at the extent of the damage to the airport, there was a high possibility that the ammunition depot here was well preserved. Just as Xiaopinghan was sizing up the airport, a burst of fierce gunfire suddenly came from the direction of the airport camp not far away. Click, click, click. That was the sound of an assault rifle. Xiaopinghan and Manzijin glanced at each other. Neither of them expected that there was someone here. Hearing the gunshots, the 3 magic fire spiders and more than a dozen magic rats wandering around the airport were immediately attracted and immediately rushed towards the place where the gunshots were heard. Xiaopinghan and Manzijin made a gesture, then jumped up and rushed towards the place where the gunshot was heard. Needless to say, Xiaopinghan's speed was just as fast as he rushed to the place where the gunfire rang out. It was in a barracks. There were 2 soldiers in military uniforms. They were shooting from the window of a barracks at 2 magic rats rushing outside. The 2 magic rats were beaten until they were covered in blood. Xiaopinghan used his remote viewing ability to scan and saw that the 2 soldiers were carrying 2 large military backpacks. The military backpacks were filled with cans and mineral water. One of them was chewing hard while shooting. Holding a piece of ham sausage, he looked very hungry. "Damn it, come on, you beasts!" another soldier yelled. Seeing a magic fire spider rushing over, the expressions of the 2 soldiers who fired suddenly changed. One of them dropped the assault rifle in his hand, turned around, picked up a rocket launcher, and pointed at the charging magic fire spider. One shot. The rocket missed the magic fire spider, but was dodged by the magic fire spider. The rocket hit a truck parked in the distance, directly blowing the truck to pieces and bursting into a large ball of fire. As the magic fire spider approached, the faces of the 2 warriors showed a look of despair. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 112. Xiaopinghan came at just the right time. Just when the magic fire spider was about to rush to the barracks where the 2 soldiers were holding fast, Xiaopinghan approached from the side and just pointed at the magic fire spider, and a small and cute Xuanhuan came out. Xuanhuan flew towards the magic fire spider, and the magic fire spider turned into an ice sculpture covered with hoarfrost. At the same time, Xiaopinghan waved his hand and summoned 2 elite slave soldiers. The summoned elite slave soldiers threw their spears, and the 2 magic rats that had just rushed in front of the warrior's house were pinned to the ground. The 2 warriors were already in despair when they saw the demon fire spider, but they did not expect that there would be reinforcements. It could be said that they were saved from a desperate situation. Seeing the magic fire spider being frozen, and then seeing the 2 throwing spears instantly killing the 2 charging demon rats and nailing them to the ground, the 2 warriors knew that a summoner was coming, and then they saw Xiaopinghan rushed out. The battle was not over yet. Xiaopinghan rushed directly to the 2 remaining magic fire spiders, and the slave soldiers he summoned rushed to the other magic rats. 2 strands of spider silk with burning threads flew over from a distance, like 2 rapidly burning fuses, trying to entangle Xiaopinghan. Xiaopinghan's figure jumped up while running, as agile as an antelope jumping among thorns. His whole figure flipped in the air, and passed through the gap between the 2 flaming spider silks. The moment he landed, a cute Xuanhuan was summoned by Xiaopinghan again. The Xuanhuan stepped on black waves under its feet, like a black elf, flying directly to the head of the nearest magic fire spider, just one bite. The black water vapor formed by Xuanhuan's body covered the magic fire spider. The flames on the magic fire spider disappeared instantly, and the whole body suddenly condensed into white frost. Because he didn't know how many of these big spiders he would encounter when he came out tonight, The few Xuanhuan Xiaoping prepared to summon in the secret mandala were all basic versions of many Xuanhuan summoned with 36 points of divine power. This basic version of the mini Xuanhuan, although Xuanhuan has a single ability, the advantage is that it will not be wasted. It is always on call, and one Xuanhuan can destroy an enemy. The elite slave soldiers summoned by Xiaoping fired 3 rounds of spears at this time, and the 6 demon rats were killed without any suspense. Seeing that the situation was not good, the remaining 2 demon rats turned around and ran away. The 2 elite slave soldiers once again drew out the throwing spears on their backs and chased the 2 demon rats. These monsters are intelligent and will run away even if they know they are outmatched. The last remaining demon fire spider saw that its 2 companions had lost their vital signs, and turned and ran away. How could Xiaoping let the fat in his mouth escape? Xiaoping pushed hard with his feet and rushed forward. His running speed was not slower than the fleeing demon fire spider, and was even a little faster. The last magic fire spider ran less than 100 meters before Xiaoping caught up with it. After easily dodging several burning spider threads, a basic version of the mini Xuanhuan was summoned again. The battle ended instantly. The 2 elite slave soldiers summoned by Xiaoping also pinned the 2 demon rats that finally wanted to escape to the grass next to the airport runway. The 2 warriors holding weapons and carrying food on their backs had already walked out of the barracks and looked at everything in front of them with shocked faces. They had seen summoners before, but they had never seen such a powerful summoner. The 3 magic fire spiders and the bunch of magic rats were killed by Xiaoping in 3 strokes. The line of fire spit out by the magic fire spider fell on the ground and was still burning on the ground. The truck hit by the rocket in the distance was also burning. The firelight in the darkness, as well as the corpses of demon rats scattered on the scene, silently told the story of the battle just experienced here. Looking at the frozen magic fire spider not far away, the 2 warriors were still a little frightened and couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Amid the burning firelight, Xiaoping walked over. The firelight illuminated Xiaoping's face and also illuminated the Legion Priest badge of the 87th Legion on his chest. "Are you okay?" "Sir." When they saw Xiaoping's face and the Legion Priest's badge hanging on Xiaoping's chest, the 2 soldiers were excited. They immediately stood up to attention and gave Xiaoping a military salute. Seeing the respected Legion Priest at this time, the 2 soldiers were almost moved to tears. You didn't evacuate either." "I didn't leave. I have been fighting in Xinquan City." "Which army are you from?" "Sir, we are from the Qingfeng Air Force Airport Garrison." The soldier who used the rocket launcher just now replied, "My name is Shi Yunhao, and his name is Tao Yang." "Didn't you 2 evacuate?" "Not only our company, I and several other brothers in the class are also stationed at the ammunition depot at the airport," Shi Yunhao replied. "Do you have anyone else?" Xiaoping was surprised. "Yes, we were guarding the ammunition depot at the airport before. We also received an evacuation order before, but we did not evacuate, so we stayed in the ammunition depot. The ammunition depot at the airport is in an underground bunker. As long as we are not discovered, we can hold on for a long time." "A long time?" Shi Yunhao said. "There are a lot of good things in the ammunition depot at the airport. Many of them have just been transported by transport plane." "Squad leader Shi said that we are leaving. Those things may be blown up or destroyed by those monsters. Then it's a waste. We have to guard here. There are people watching those things. They won't break. They can still be used when the troops come back. They can also kill monsters." The squad leader asked everyone what they wanted. Everyone is willing to stay and guard, waiting for the troops. "Come back." Tao Yang said next to him, "There is no food in the ammunition depot. Tonight, the squad leader took me out to the camp to get some food to take back. Unexpectedly, I met a magic rat. While several people were talking, Man Zijan, holding a sniper rifle, ran over quickly, breathing heavily. Sir, there are more than 10 magic fire spiders, 7 or 8 magic liquid spiders and a large group of magic rats. They just heard the movement at the airport and are approaching the airport. Quick, we can enter the underground ammunition depot. There is an emergency passage for people to enter and exit the underground ammunition depot. We came out of the emergency passage. Those monsters can't get in. Xuanhuan said immediately. Manzijan, you and the two of them go to the underground ammunition depot to take shelter first. I will lure those monsters away. Those monsters have heard the movement here. If you don't lure them away, a large number of monsters will gather here later. Underground the ammunition depot might be exposed. Ah, sir, this is too dangerous. Xuanhuan said immediately. Immediately execute the order, Xiaopinggan said. Without further explanation, he took the two summoned elite slave soldiers and ran towards the outside of the barracks, disappearing into the darkness in the blink of an eye. Seeing Xiaopinggan's disappearing back, Xuanhuan gritted his teeth, said nothing more, and immediately led Manzijan towards the emergency passage into the underground bunker. Xiaopinggan had just rushed out of the airport when he saw a large group of monsters rushing toward the airport. He rushed over with the two elite slave soldiers. The elite slave soldiers threw two throwing spears and killed two of them. Xiaopinggan released a fireball technique from a distance, burning a demon rat into dregs. The fireball spell in the dark is so eye-catching, it is simply telling all the monsters that I am the summoner, come and kill me. After doing this, the eyes of the surrounding monsters all turned red, and all the monsters' attention was suddenly attracted to Xiaopinggan. In the blink of an eye, flaming spider threads that could burn Xiaopinggan to ashes and highly corrosive mucus spider threads that could melt his entire body into slag were spat towards him. One after another, the demon rats rushed towards him without fear of death. The summoner is a being that scares these monsters, but as long as they can gain an advantage, these monsters hate the summoner to the core and are bound to kill him. After successfully attracting the monster, Xiaopinggan ran away and rushed towards the mountains in the distance. A large number of monsters were following Xiaopinggan, and they were chasing towards the mountains with great momentum. If the number of these big spiders were smaller, Xiaopinggan could eat them all at once, but the number of these attracted monsters was too much, which exceeded Xiaopinggan's current appetite and ability. Xiaopinggan could only first run away and lead these things from the airport to the mountains. It wasn't until daybreak that Xiaopinggan got rid of those monsters and returned to the airport again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 113. The airport is still the same as last night, and the corpses of the magic rats and magic fire spiders are still in place. These were trophies, and Xiaopinggan naturally couldn't waste them. He started outside the airport, picked them up all the way, and loaded all the corpses of 3 magic fire spiders and 11 magic rats into the space warehouse. After picking up the corpses of these monsters, Xiaopinggan thought about the image of Manzijan in his head. As soon as he closed his eyes and looked with his remote viewing ability, he immediately discovered Manzijan's figure. At this moment, Manzijan was in a grove of liquid amber trees outside the airport barracks. Manzijan, wearing a ghillie suit, lay down under a pile of liquid amber leaves and was looking around the airport with the scope of his sniper rifle. This is waiting for myself to come back. Xiaopinggan walked out of the barracks area and ran directly towards the forest of liquid amber trees. A few seconds later, the walkie-talkie he carried with him rang. Sir, I saw you. The emergency passage to the underground ammunition depot is in the liquid amber tree more than 500 meters east of you, sir. I am also in the liquid amber tree at the moment. Manzijan's relieved voice sounded on the walkie-talkie. Sound. I saw you too, I'll be here soon. Xiaopinggan said, and soon passed through the area between the barracks and the liquid amber forest, and arrived at the fiery red liquid amber forest. Manzijan climbed up from a pile of leaves, holding his sniper rifle, and ran over happily. "Sir, are you okay?" "Fine. The exit of the emergency exit of the airport's underground ammunition depot is in this forest," Manzijan said as he led Xiaopinggan and ran towards the forest. The ground in this liquid amber forest is not too flat, and there are some exposed rocks in many places. This place is already outside the military airport, and is separated from the airport by a wire fence. Most people would never expect that there is an emergency passage into the underground ammunition depot of the airport in the woods near the military airport barracks. This design is indeed ingenious. Manzijan took Xiaopinggan and walked a few hundred meters in the forest. They came to a place with more rocks on the ground. Manzijan pointed to a huge liquid amber tree in the forest and looked at it. The liquid amber tree made a gesture. Xiaopinggan looked over and discovered that there was a surveillance camera cleverly hidden in the tree hole above the tall liquid amber tree. The camera was hidden in the tree hole, and only the lens was looking at it. This rocky area. A stone the size of a millstone was like the mouth of a missile silo. It suddenly opened from a pile of rocks, revealing the dark hole under the stone. Shi Yunhao's head emerged from under the stone, with an expectant look on his face. Smiling, he waved to Xiaopinggan, "Here." Xiaopinggan and Manzijan walked over. There was a passage inside the cave, leading to the underground. They entered the cave and went down more than 2 meters. There was a small platform. There was a narrow passage next to the small platform. There was another. The monitoring monitor that can see the outside situation allows people to see the situation at the entrance outside from here. Shi Yunhao pressed a switch, and the stone closed again, and no light could come in from the outside. Advertising, app is really good, worth installing, even Android and Apple phones support it. There was a dark red light on inside the entrance, but the light was not completely dark. During these days in Xinquan City, the whole city was dark at night, without a single light, only the monsters milling around. It felt so good to see the lights on again, and Xiaopinggan felt relaxed. Shi Yunhao led Xiaopinggan towards the narrow passage. The passage was spiral downward. After more than 20 meters underground, a thick alloy safety door appeared in front of him. Shi Yunhao raised his head and looked at the top of the safety door. With a glance at a monitor, the security door was opened from the inside. All the doors here have switches that are opened inside. They can only be opened from the inside and cannot be opened from the outside. Shi Yunhao explained to Xiaopinggan. The 3 people entered the safety door. The safety door was closed. Inside was a stairwell. Shi Yunhao opened the elevator door and entered. In the elevator shaft, there were only 2 buttons for the floors. One button was B1 and the other was B2. Shi Yunhao pressed B2. The elevator quickly sank underground. After sinking almost 100 meters, the B2 light finally came on, the elevator door opened, and when walking out of the elevator door, there was another 12 meters long, lit up in the dark. There is a narrow corridor with red light bulbs. At the end of the corridor, there is another thick security door. There is also a surveillance camera on the security door. The safety door opened, and the 3 people entered. The safety door closed again. The dark red light finally disappeared, and the light behind the safety door became even brighter. As soon as Xiaopinggan came in, a group of soldiers immediately rushed towards him, surrounded Xiaopinggan, and looked at him with excited eyes. "Sir, are our troops calling? Sir, is Xinquan City okay now? Sir, are the 87th Army preparing to reopen the Air Force airport? Sir." Xiaopinggan's identity is a Legion priest. He is not an officer in this position. He only enjoys the treatment of an officer. Strictly speaking, it is not appropriate to call him a chief. In the past, this position was called a priest, but now there is no such title as an adult. These soldiers in the army usually I'm used to being called sir. When I see someone with a higher status than myself, I either call him sir or general. Xiaopingan is not a general, so many people are used to calling Xiaopingan sir, which seems to be more familiar. Those soldiers were so excited. They didn't expect to see the Legion priest of the 87th Legion here. When Shi Yunhao and Tao Yang said they saw Xiaopingan outside, these soldiers didn't believe it. Now they saw the real person. The excitement of those soldiers was beyond words. What are you doing? It's a mess. This is not a vegetable market. We are soldiers. Shi Yunhao's expression turned slightly serious and he immediately shouted, "The 87th Army Qingfeng Air Force Airport Garrison Camp Ammunition Depot Guard Team is gathering." Upon hearing this, the soldiers who had just gathered in a crowd immediately became excited and immediately gathered their team in front of Xiaopingan, standing in a neat row with their heads held high. Take a break. Stand at attention. Report the number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 9 people standing in a row roared loudly. The number 10 was reported by Shi Yunhao. After calling 10, Shi Yunhao turned around, stood at attention, saluted Xiaopingan, and said loudly, "The number of people in the 87th Army Air Force Airport Garrison Camp Ammunition Depot Guard Squad 10 people, the actual number of people is 10, no one is absent, sir, please review." Looking at the sincere and eager faces and the pairs of eyes flashing with the light of hope, Xiaopingan took a deep breath and nodded, "Take a break." The 10 people moved in unison and stood still in front of Xiaopingan. "Everyone asked me a lot of questions just now. I will answer your questions first." Xiaopingan stood in front of all the soldiers in the guard class and said, "The 87th Legion has been dispersed, and the situation may be very bad now. I have been fighting those invading creatures in Xinquan, and I have been trying to contact the 87th Legion, but I have never been able to contact them. Judging from various circumstances and signs, the wave of demon spirits that appeared that night did not appear in Yizhu province. Yes, maybe it's nationwide or even global. I haven't seen any planes or drones in Xinquan these days for reconnaissance, so I initially judged that the current Dian kingdom may be in a state of anarchy, very confusion." The nerves of the soldiers standing in a row suddenly became tense. Many looked at each other, and some gritted their teeth tightly. Because the people standing in front of me are the strongest and bravest warriors of the great Yan kingdom. They are a group of soldiers who are still guarding the ammunition depot in desperate situations and guarding the hope of the 87th Legion's counterattack. So I feel that I cannot lie to you. I must let me tell you the actual situation outside. I am here not to represent the Legion or anyone else, but only to represent myself." Xiaopingan's eyes swept across the faces of those soldiers. "Your persistence here is meaningful. If you don't stick here, this ammunition depot may no longer exist. The reason why I come here is to find a powerful weapon. Those magic fire spiders and magic liquid spiders built a huge nest in the largest underground shelter in Xinquan City. They laid many eggs in the nest, hundreds of thousands of them, and also laid many eggs of many brothers who died in the 87th Legion. The remains, as well as the remains of the dead Xinquan citizens, were dragged to the nest and stored, hoping to use those remains as food for the spider eggs after they hatched. I need a bomb, and the more powerful the bomb, the better. I want to take the bomb back to Xinquan, use the bomb to destroy the nests of those monsters, and let those monsters be buried with our brothers of the 87th Legion soldiers and the citizens of Xinquan who died." Listening to Xiaopingan's words, the soldiers standing in front of him clenched their fists, gritted their teeth, and their faces became determined. The situation outside made everyone's heart sink to the bottom, but after knowing that the bombs in the ammunition depot they were holding could destroy the monster lair in Xinquan City, everyone's heart surged with passion. As long as the items in the ammunition depot can work and turn those monsters into ashes, their stay here will not be in vain, and their persistence here will have meaning and value. "Sir, We don't have many other things in the ammunition depot, but we definitely have enough bombs of all kinds. Here we store a batch of the latest models of thermobaric bombs, cloudburst bombs, thermite incendiary bombs, and other kinds of bombs. There are also a lot of weapons, equipment, and bombs, Xuanhuan said loudly. How many? Xiaopinggan asked. If there are only 3 types of thermobaric bombs, cloud explosive bombs and thermite incendiary bombs, the ammunition stored in this warehouse is enough to blow Xingquan City into ruins. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 114. The entire military airport and the underground ammunition depot are covered with granite. The ammunition depot is surrounded by a reinforced concrete layer several meters thick, so it is very strong and can resist almost any attack. Even sandworms cannot get in. Xuanhuan introduced Xiaopinggan while walking in the ammunition depot. Other garrison soldiers also followed, taking Xiaopinggan to visit this place. This huge ammunition depot is the reason why all the soldiers stationed here are willing to stay. The ammunition depot is very large, like a modern warehouse, divided into several parts. The roads in the ammunition depot can allow 2 vehicles to drive in side by side. Xuanhuan opened the lighting switch of the ammunition depot with a snap, and the lights in the entire ammunition depot lit up one by one, and the lights were brightly lit all of a sudden. In each warehouse, various arms, weapons, and bombs that have not yet been unpacked are piled up, which is shocking to see. Xuanhuan took Xiaopinggan to visit warehouse after warehouse. This warehouse contains heat-seeking missiles. This warehouse contains air-to-air missiles and some anti-radiation missiles. This warehouse is filled with air-dropped bombs. The bombs are particularly effective against magic rats, but they may also hurt people. They can only be used in no man's land. This warehouse is stacked with some military supplies that have just been brought in. Many supplies have just been shipped and have not yet been distributed to the troops. As he spoke, Xuanhuan took Xiaopinggan to a warehouse and opened a box containing weapons. In the ammunition box, there was something like an anti-tank gun with a huge barrel, and several heavy ammunition with tail fins. This is a cloud explosive bomb for an individual soldier. It is the biggest killing weapon that an individual soldier can master. In addition to being a little heavier, this thing is too powerful. This thing was first equipped by the army of the Huaxia Kingdom. The Yan Kingdom imported a lot of it, but it hasn't been fully promoted in the military yet. Individual cloud explosion bomb. Xiaopinggan picked up the items in the equipment box. The thing was indeed a bit heavy. A single soldier cloud explosion bomb and a launcher as thick as a kettle weighed 40 or 50 kilograms together. Of course, this is for ordinary people. As long as they have good physical strength, they should have no problem carrying this thing. If we could carry something like this out before, when we encounter those magic fire spiders, we would shoot them one by one. Tao Yang said from the side. If we have to carry something like this out, how can we carry the food back? This thing is too heavy. This thing is suitable for ambushes or defense. It's very lethal against targets hiding in houses. If you shoot it with your eyes closed, a small building will be gone. The soldiers in our class have good physical strength, but carrying this thing will be very difficult to march for a long time. Each squad is equipped with one, and they take turns carrying it. A soldier next to him added. Xiaopinggan nodded, thinking that he should be able to get several thousand of this thing into his spatial warehouse. Even if his power is exhausted in the future, it will be a pleasure to use this thing to fight those magic fire spiders. Everyone continued to visit the ammunition depot at the back. As soon as the door of the ammunition depot at the back was opened, there was a whole warehouse of big guys in the ammunition depot. Those big guys were almost as tall as a man and as thick as a bucket. The dark green paint is full of murderous aura. These are air-dropped heavy-duty cloud explosive bombs. There are more than 3,000 in this warehouse. The ones in the back are air-dropped thermite incendiary bombs, with more than 5,000. The warehouse next to them is thermobaric bombs, with more than 1,000. These things can only be transported by vehicle. Xuanhuan said to Xiaopinghan, the entrance and exit of this ammunition depot was invaded by magic fire spiders and magic rats a few days ago. I ordered the entrance to be blown up, but we have engineering equipment such as bulldozers, excavators, and trucks in the ammunition depot. The collapsed hole can be dug again, which will take about a week. Yes, after digging the hole, we drove and escorted these things to Xuanhuan. We risked our lives, said a soldier. Yes, as long as we can kill those monsters, we will risk our lives. We will definitely send these bombs to Xuanhuan, blow up the nests of those spiders, and let those spiders be buried with the sacrificed brothers. The soldiers became excited. Yes, we cannot allow the remains of those sacrificed brothers to be destroyed by those monsters again. Although it's only a few dozen kilometers from here to Xuanhuan, it's not that far, but driving there is like going through hell. But none of those soldiers were afraid, and they were all full of enthusiasm. There is no need to dig out the exit outside, I have a way to get these things out, Xiaopinghan said. These big guys weigh several tons. How can we get them out? Xuanhuan asked in confusion, and the surrounding soldiers also looked at Xiaopinghan in confusion. Xiaopinghan didn't speak anymore, but just put his hand on the pile of cloud bombs in front of him. As soon as he thought about it, those cloud bombs disappeared from everyone's eyes, like magic. Ah, where are those cloud bombs? Why is it gone? A group of people stared at Xiaopinghan in shock. Xuanhuan also walked around the empty space, trying to confirm whether it was some kind of deception. It is not a secret that summoners possess space equipment, and it is not even news. There is not only one way for summoners to master space equipment, except for summoners like Xiaopinghan who can transform the secret mandala after successfully integrating the Kangja world pearl. In addition, the summoner also has space-equipped magic weapons, but it goes without saying how precious those magic weapons are. These are all things that have existed since ancient times. It's just that there are not many summoners who can transform space warehouses in the secret mandala and possess space equipment. They usually keep it secret and rarely show it in front of ordinary people. Therefore, most people will spend their entire lives. There may not be a chance to see a summoner using space equipment. Xiaopinghan and Manzijin acted together before. As the number of actions increased, they saw some of the killed magic rats and magic fire spiders disappearing one by one. Manzijin had actually guessed something, but he didn't say anything. And now Xiaopinghan has publicly displayed this ability of his. At this time, there was no way to take these things away while they were still hidden, so Xiaopinghan simply showed a little of his trump card. Needless to say, the shock of the surrounding soldiers was natural, but Manzijin's face showed a true expression. This, the legendary summoner space equipment. Xuanhuan swallowed his saliva and asked intermittently. As a group of soldiers guarding the warehouse, I would be more frightened by the space equipment. If there were a few more of these things, then the ammunition depot would not be needed. When they retreat, they can take the ammunition depot with them. Leave, that's awesome. Xiaopinghan nodded, I still have a lot of ingredients in my space equipment. Today I'm going to treat you all to drinks and hot pot. The soldiers were stunned for a moment, and then cheered all of a sudden. The hot pot is held in a completely empty warehouse covering an area of 5 to 6 acres. The soldiers stationed in the warehouse usually eat and play here. In this empty warehouse, the soldiers entertain themselves and even have a basketball court and bowling alley here that can be used for activities. The soldiers drove 2 forklifts in, raised the bucket of the forklift to the height of the basketball stand, and welded 2 iron rings on it, and the ball frame was ready. The ones used for bowling are shell casings from anti-aircraft guns. Usually everyone plays basketball here when they have nothing to do, eats here and entertains themselves. The tables and chairs were empty ammunition boxes. As for what Xiaopinghan said about eating hot pot, What to do without hot pot? That was too simple. The soldiers found a few brass shells from howitzers, sawed open the shells, and washed them. There is already a hot pot, and it is made of copper. The generator room in this underground ammunition depot stores thousands of tons of diesel, and there is no shortage of energy. Once the shell is filled with water and placed on the electric stove, the hot pot is ready to boil. This kind of hot pot is quite unique. Xiaoping'an was guerrilla in Xinquan City a few days ago and took the opportunity to raid several suburban supermarkets, so the various foods, supplies, things, drinks in his current secret warehouse are simply not too much. Xiaoping'an waved his hand, and boxes of various beers, liquors, mineral waters, and boxes of canned vegetables and meat that were ready to be cooked appeared in the warehouse, piled up like a hill. Xiaoping'an picked up a bottle of wine and said to everyone, "No matter how many of us there are, we will fight those monsters to the end. Long live the 87th Legion. I respect everyone for this bottle of wine. Let's do it." After that, Xiaoping'an finished the bottle of wine in one sip. "Long live the 87th Army, let's do it." All the soldiers raised their bottles and shouted, and they did it together. The hot pot this time was extremely enjoyable. Shi Yunhao organized the soldiers in the class to toast Xiaoping'an in turn. He wanted to knock Xiaoping'an down, but he didn't want to. In the end, Xiaoping'an knocked them all down alone. The body in the 1UN realm is already close to an inhuman existence, and that little alcohol is completely childish for Xiaoping'an. Even Manzijin got drunk and started dancing with the soldier, making the others laugh. After everyone fell to the ground after drinking, Xiaoping'an was the only one who was sober in the end. Looking at the 11 people sleeping on the ground, Xiaoping'an lifted the people up from the floor of the warehouse one by one with one hand and sent them back to their sleeping places. The place where the soldiers stationed here sleep is also a small empty warehouse. Everyone makes bunks on the floor and sleeps in sleeping bags. Everyone's nerves have been tense these days, and it's time to relax a bit today. After finishing this, Xiaoping'an also returned to his room, sat down cross-legged, and directly took out the world beads harvested yesterday and today. He had harvested 2 world beads a few days ago, one was the Xuanhuan family bead and the other was the Chao family bead. He had no use for those 2 world beads, so he kept them. But on the way here yesterday, Xiaoping'an's luck came back again. After several battles, Xiaoping'an was able to harvest 2 usable boundary beads. Tomorrow is November 11th, the 15th day of the lunar calendar. If you fuse the boundary pearl today, you will be able to enjoy the benefit of a sudden increase in divine power tomorrow. The first boundary bead Xiaoping'an took out had only 3 words Ligagen on it. After adding a drop of blood, Xiaoping'an was quickly wrapped in a cocoon of light and entered the world in the world bead. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 115. Ligagen, this is the tiger you drew. It's so ridiculous. If a tiger like this is sold for money, is it possible that we have never seen a tiger before? That's right. This is not a tiger. It doesn't look like it. It's not majestic at all. I feel like a dog. As soon as Xiaoping'an opened his eyes, he saw that he was on the street. There was a table in front of him. The table was covered with drawing paper, and a tiger was drawn on the paper. He was holding a pen in his hand, and there were many people beside him. People were pointing at him and whispering. Xiaoping'an looked behind him again. There was a shelf behind him. There were 2 paintings hanging on the shelf. The paintings were of cattle. The cattle were painted well, lifelike and quite skillful. Xiaoping'an understood at a glance that he was selling paintings on the street at the moment. Ligagen has lived in the countryside since he was a child and likes painting. There are many cows in the countryside, and Ligagen sees them a lot, so Ligagen learns to draw cows. After drawing many cows, Ligagen gradually becomes famous in the countryside and becomes a painter. Setting up a stall and selling paintings in Tiantai City is a way to make a living. At this moment, Li Kejun was not very old, and his reputation was only in his hometown of Tiantai, Jiangxi. He was not as famous as he would later be. Liang Taizhi couldn't help but invite him to the palace to chat and question him. Xiaoping'an immediately figured out his current situation. Just in front of the painting stall, a man in silk satin who looked like a country squire pointed at the tiger drawn on the paper, stared at Xiaoping'an with a dissatisfied look, pointed at the painting, "You are so good at painting tigers, as if dead. People who don't know better think it's a dog. I've already told you that I want to buy this painting and hang it up to see people. How can I see people for your painting and pay me $100? I won't give any money." The squire snorted coldly, threw up his sleeves and walked away. Xiaoping'an looked at the tiger in the painting in front of him. That one really didn't look like it, it didn't have the spirit of a tiger, it was soft. It is estimated that Li Kejun was able to draw this kind of painting because he had seen tiger skin before. At the painting stall next to it, a painter with a goatee who specialized in selling landscape paintings came over. He stared at the tiger picture in front of Xiaoping'an and suddenly laughed. His goatee was raised proudly and he said, looking at Xiaoping'an, "Boy, I guess you have never even seen a living tiger, but you dare to sell tiger paintings. Do you know that those who buy tiger paintings want to hang the paintings in the living room or flower hall study for people to admire? Yes, country people are country people, you should go back and paint your cows." The people around burst into laughter. The business couldn't be done. Xiaoping'an resisted the urge to draw another tiger on the spot, tore up the painting, and then silently began to close the stall. While collecting the painting stall, Xiaoping'an had a question in his mind. If he could repaint a lifelike tiger at this moment and completely change the historical trajectory of Li Kejun, then would this world bead be considered a fusion? Success. After thinking for a while, Xiaoping'an came to the conclusion that Li Kejun's painting of a tiger was a historical illusion that inspired countless people. Without Li Kejun's subsequent experiences, this illusion would not exist. Then he would be able to draw a tiger at this moment. Li Kejun just disappeared from everyone. What is the difference between him and other painters who can draw tigers? Xiaoping'an thought for a while and felt that the level of the tiger he had drawn at the moment was not enough for Li Kejun to leave a name in history. Maybe the fusion of this world bead would fail, so he fused it with this bead. Think of the process of making the world beads as a rare opportunity to pay tribute to Li Kejun and improve your own painting ability. Xiaoping'an wanted to see how far his painting skills would improve if he tried following Li Kejun's method of improving his painting skills. In this world, especially when children in China talk about painters, what everyone often thinks of is the story of Leonardo da Vinci painting eggs. Da Vinci is regarded as the idol of painters. For many people, Li Kejun is the idol of painters. It's an unfamiliar name. What many people don't know is that 500 years before Leonardo da Vinci, there was a young man named Li Kejun during the Five Dynasties period of China. He worked harder to learn to draw than Da Vinci painted eggs and cows. That is the true spirit of craftsmanship and master spirit. Xiaoping'an didn't know where Li Kejun lived, so he could only ask the talent along the way back to his home. I'm afraid Li Kejun is stupid. He even forgot where his home is. Someone who knew Li Kejun muttered in surprise when they saw Li Kejun asking where his home was. I heard that Li Kejun made a big joke at the party today. He was completely embarrassed. It's normal to feel a little lost. Li Kejun's home is in the countryside outside Tiantai City. He is neither too rich nor too poor. His parents still live in the house. They have hundreds of acres of land and raise several cows. He has become somewhat famous for his paintings in the countryside in recent years. Also has a bit of net worth. When Xiaoping'an returned home, he searched Li Kejun's bedroom and found a lot of money that Li Kejun had accumulated over the years in a box. In the next 2 days, Xiaoping'an didn't go anywhere. He just waited at home, preparing things to go into the mountain. Li Keqian's parents knew that Li Keqian was being laughed at, so they came to comfort Li Keqian. On the 15th day, there was a market in the city, and the whole Tiantai city suddenly became lively again. People from all over the country flocked to the city to participate in the market. Xiaopinggan took some money and the things he planned to go into the mountains. Came to the city again. Today, the flow of people in the city is several times greater than usual. The streets are very lively, with big girls, young wives, and people doing business all coming. Xiaopinggan came to the city and walked around for a while, then came to the market where mountain products were sold in the city. Those who sell mountain products here are farmers and hunters in the mountains. Xiaopinggan walked around here and found that the business of an old hunter was particularly good. The old hunter was in his 50s, strong and energetic, carrying a kitchen knife on his back, and had a simple face. There were several things he sold. A leopard skin, 2 wolf skins, a few golden pheasants, and 2 rabbits. The golden pheasants and rabbits were placed in 2 cages, and other fur goods were sold directly on the ground. Because the things that the old hunter sells are always a few dollars cheaper than others, there are many people coming to buy his things, and they all seem to be acquaintances, and they don't bargain much. Some of the other people's businesses have just started. The old hunter everything has been sold out. After selling the things, the old hunter packed up, then went to a nearby store to buy some salt, made a pot of wine, and pulled some cloth, and then he was ready to go back. "Uncle, please." Xiaopinggan walked out from the street, stopped in front of the old hunter, and saluted him. "What's the matter with this little brother?" The old hunter hung the wine gourd on his waist and asked. Xiaopinggan smiled. "I saw that uncle was selling things on the street just now, and he sold them faster than others." "Ha ha." The hunter uncle smiled boldly. "Everything costs just a few bucks. We are all old customers, so there is no need to worry about it. With this little effort, I can go up the mountain and hunt a leopard, and I will make up for everything. If I want something, I can keep it for you when I get it next time. Uncle is a generous man. I wonder if he knows where there are tigers in the nearby mountains. Of course there are big insects in the mountain." "Why do you ask me?" The old hunter became curious. "To be honest, I want to go into the mountains to see what the tiger looks like and observe it closely. I wonder if uncle can take me to the mountains to have a look. Just think of it as if I hired him to take me up the mountain and give you a fortune. Cost." The old Orion's face suddenly became serious. "Brother, don't be joking, that big insect might kill someone if you see it. Are you tired of living there?" "Uncle, don't worry. I'm not tired of living. I just want to take a good look at what that tiger looks like. I'm a painter, and the tigers I paint never look like them. People laugh at them, so I want to take a look." Brother is actually a painter. The old Orion's face suddenly showed some respect for intellectuals. "This is the cow I drew. I gave it to my uncle as a greeting gift." Xiaopinggan took out a framed picture of the cow and gave it to the old hunter. The old hunter wiped his hands on his clothes before taking the painting, opened it curiously, and then praised him. "Not bad, not bad, this old buffalo painted really well. Little brother, you are very good at painting. But it's still too dangerous to go into the mountains to see tigers, and I'd be doing you harm by taking you there. Uncle, listen to me. I don't want to get in front of the tiger and look at it. I'm not that bold. I just want to build a wooden house in the tree where tigers roam. I will watch from the wooden house. Get something to attract the tiger. If the tiger can't come to the cabin, I won't be in danger." The old Orion's expression changed. He touched his bearded chin, and thought for a moment. "It's okay to build a shed on a tree and watch from the tree, but brother, you have to think about it carefully. Do you really want to go?" Xiaopinggan nodded with determination. "I have made up my mind, I must go." "Okay, then come with me, I will take you there," the old Orion said boldly. Just 3 days later, on a mountain called Xuanhuan Peak, more than 50 miles away from Tiantai City, a small treehouse appeared. The treehouse was built on the top of a tall nanmu tree more than 10 meters above the ground. At the canopy, the trunk of the nanmu tree is thick and straight, and the tiger cannot climb up. Tigers often appear near Immortal Peak. The Orion uncle and his son worked together with Xiaopingan here to find a place for Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan gave the Orion uncle a sum of money and asked the Orion uncle to send him some food, pens, and ink every 3 days. If he caught pheasants, hares, etc., he could also send them and treat them as sales. I used pheasants and rabbits to attract the tigers here. Uncle Orion agreed immediately. Xiaopingan's request was easy and hassle-free, and Xiaopingan's work was not in vain. On the day Xiaopingan lived in the tree house, Uncle Orion got a pheasant, tied the pheasant to a nearby tree, and then sprinkled a little chicken blood nearby, saying that this would attract the tiger. After doing this, Xiaopingan waited on the tree for the tiger to arrive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 116. The pheasant was tied under another tree more than 30 meters away from Xiaopingan's tree house. There was a grassland surrounding it, and nothing could block Xiaopingan's view. The pheasant was croaking, pacing uneasily on the grass, and flapping its wings in an attempt to fly away. After the old hunter and his son left, the mountain forest was both noisy and silent. Xiaopingan sat cross-legged in the treehouse with his eyes closed, waiting patiently. He truly regarded himself as the return of his past, and made up his mind to paint his own paintings. Skills honed to the extreme. The efforts, sacrifices, and determination that Li Keqian made in order to paint tigers back then are really amazing. Tigers are not good at climbing trees, but in this mountain forest, there are too many venomous insects and beasts that can climb trees. Leopards can climb trees, venomous snakes can also climb trees, and venomous insects can climb trees. In this environment, if you come to settle down in the forest to watch tigers, then it's basically like putting life and death aside. This spirit is the foundation for a person's success. There are a few pieces of cake and 2 water bottles in the tree house. This is Xiaopingan's food. There is a clear stream nearby, which can solve the water source problem. If you want to be more convenient, you can only get down from the tree and go to the nearby grass to solve the problem. This life is not much different from that of the Yushao family. It is completely alive. Into the state of primitive man. In the past 2 days, the pheasant had been clucking, and Xiaopingan didn't even see a single tiger hair. On the morning of the 3rd day, Xiaopingan was sitting in meditation in the tree house. Suddenly, he felt that the forest outside suddenly became quiet, and a strong murderous intention echoed in the forest. The pheasants that were crowing on the grass before suddenly stopped crowing at this time. Xiaopingan suddenly opened his eyes. On a tree not far away, a group of birds were suddenly frightened and flew up. The grass shook, and with a roar, a majestic tiger with an eye-catching white forehead rushed fiercely from the nearby hillside. Coming down, the momentum is like that of Feng Konghu, which is no exaggeration at all. It rushed down with a strong wind. The pheasant was so frightened that it shrank into a ball. When it saw the tiger coming towards it, it flapped its wings and wanted to fly away. But as soon as the pheasant jumped up, it was leapt into the air by the tiger. It opened its mouth wide and took a bite. He bit it and pounced down. That tiger is fierce and domineering, with a wild and endless breath of life and the momentum of the king of beasts. Its eyes are murderous, its movements are fierce and powerful, and every pore in its body exudes the breath of blood, masculinity, and power. Indescribable. That is not a tiger kept in a zoo, nor a tiger in a cage, but a living beast that can tear apart all prey and enemies at any time. Only when you see that tiger do you know the temperament of the true king of beasts. After the tiger pounced on the pheasant, it immediately disappeared into the grass and disappeared. However, the scene of the moment it appeared and pounced on the pheasant was deeply imprinted in Xiaopinggan's mind. Xiaopinggan felt that a nerve deep in his heart was touched, but he forgot to explain and couldn't tell what it was like. In the end, he only took out the drawing paper and pen and grabbed it in the wooden house. With that little feeling in my heart, I drew several pictures in a row, trying to express that feeling on paper. But no matter how he painted, Xiaopinggan always felt that the tigers he painted could not express the feeling in his heart, and always lacked something. Xiaopinggan thought that his Chinese painting was pretty good before, but after drawing a few pictures of tigers, he realized that the tigers he painted still lacked something. Perhaps this thing was what Li Keqian was also looking for. The next day, the old hunter and his son came again and brought a rabbit and some pancakes to Xiaopinggan. The rabbit continued to be tied near the big tree. The old hunter and his son sprinkled a little sheep's blood near the big tree. That night, a wild wolf came. Xiaopinggan threw stones at the tree and yelled, finally scaring the wild wolf away. One day later, the tiger came again and quickly took the rabbit away. Xiaopinggan remembered every movement of the tiger hunting prey in his heart, and kept trying to draw the things that touched his heart over and over again on the drawing paper. 2 days later, the old hunter and his son came again. Xiaopinggan asked the old hunter and his son to bring him some pen, ink, and paper, because the pen, ink, and paper he brought had been completely used up. Xiaopinggan was drawing tigers every day, learning from tigers, and thinking about the tiger. All he dreamed and thought about in his head were the tiger's every move of killing its prey. He was completely immersed in that state and completely forgot about it. He realized that this was the world in Jizu, and completely forgot that he was returning to his true form at this moment. He painted more and more tiger portraits, and they became more and more similar. He consumed more and more ink and paper, and even brought a few paintbrushes. They are all bald. The thing that shocked Xiaopinggan was not just the image of the tiger, but the spirit of the king of beasts and the most primitive and surging spirit of all living things in the tiger. A power of the beast is a kind of rhyme, a kind of enlightenment, a kind of Tao, which is difficult to describe. Xiaopinggan has been completely immersed in it. Hunter and his son would send something to Xiaopinggan every 3 or 4 days, and check to see if Xiaopinggan was okay. Every time they came, they would see Xiaopinggan either crazy or silent. Xiaopinggan's tiger paintings, the father and son felt more and more alike at first. Later, when they saw the things Xiaopinggan painted, the father and son could no longer understand them at all, because the things in Xiaopinggan's paintings became more and more similar. It's getting weirder and weirder. There are all kinds of chaotic lines, sometimes they are mountains, rivers, and clouds, sometimes they are swaying leaves, or flowing streams, sometimes they are even a stripe on a tiger's body, a little fierce light in its eyes, sunrise and sunset. The hunters and his son even doubted whether Xiaopinggan was crazy. Xiaopinggan lived in the tree house for 2 years. On this day, the old hunter and his son came to deliver something to Xiaopinggan again, and then the old hunter suddenly said, "By the way, when I came out today, I heard news that several hunters from the next village were hunting on another mountain. I bought a tiger and am about to sell it." After Xiaopinggan heard this, his heart moved. "Uncle, can you take me to see it? I want to buy that tiger." "Ah, you have to leave here. I'm going down the mountain temporarily. It's not cheap to buy a whole tiger. The most expensive thing about the tiger is the skin, then the bones, and then the meat." What the old hunter said is not cheap is actually just compared to people of this era. For Xiaopinggan, the prices of these hunted beasts in this era, such as tigers, are not that expensive. If it were not for things like the white tiger, a rare species of human beings, a hunting tiger with a few forked eyes or arrow holes on its body and most of its fur lost is no more valuable than a living cow. Of course, if there is a complete tiger skin that has not been damaged, the price will be different. If you want a complete tiger skin, the difficulty of hunting a tiger will be more than 10 times higher, and the price of the tiger skin will also be higher. It doesn't matter, I still have some savings, I should be able to buy it. Seeing Xiaoping's straightforwardness, the old hunter nodded, okay, I'll take you to ask and see how much it costs. Thank you, uncle. Xiaoping followed the old hunter down the mountain and bought the hunted tiger without much trouble. Xiaoping, who bought the tiger, stayed at the old hunter's house for a few days. During these few days, Xiaoping personally dissected the tiger bit by bit. After dissecting the tiger, Xiaoping gave the tiger meat to the old hunter. Then he went back up the mountain with the tiger bones and skin. Xiaoping continued to paint in the tree house. This time he painted a tiger without skin, only the muscles on the tiger's body. He only painted those muscles for half a year. Then, he began to join the tiger's bones bit by bit, and began to draw a tiger with only skeletons in the painting. During this period, Xiaoping continued to observe tigers on the mountain. After painting the skeleton for a year, Xiaoping came down from the tree wearing a tiger's skin and dressed himself as a tiger. Every day he walked, fluttered, and jumped with his hands and feet like a tiger, imitating every move of a tiger. In this way, more than a year has passed without realizing it. More than a year later, Xiaoping took off his tiger skin and started boxing in the mountains and forests. He was leaping like a dragon and a tiger in the mountains and forests, walking as fast as flying. Xiaoping started painting again. He used stones, branches, on trees, on the ground, in flowing water, in his own mind, and in the sky. He painted whatever he saw. It was no longer limited to tigers, but also the world. Everything is in the painting. On this day, Xiaoping was wearing a tiger skin and drinking water by the stream. While he was drinking water, the bushes nearby moved, and a tiger that was more than 2 meters long, not even the tail, suddenly emerged from the bushes. Just as if they didn't see Xiaoping, they also came to Xiaoping to drink water. Xiaoping turned his head and glanced at the tiger, and the tiger also turned its head and looked at him. The tiger bared its teeth and roared lowly at Xiaoping. Xiaoping stood up and kicked the tiger, causing the tiger to turn over. The tiger roared and rushed over. Xiaoping stretched out his hand, like pinching a cat, grabbed the skin of the tiger's neck and threw the tiger out. Xiaoping stared at the tiger. The tiger was thrown on the ground a few meters away. It didn't dare to look at Xiaoping. It lay on the ground, slowly backed away, then rolled and turned its belly towards Xiaoping, showing a bit of belly. Just at this moment, the silver bottle in Xiaoping's mind suddenly broke, the sun was shining brightly, and the rivers were full. Xiaoping laughed loudly and went down the mountain. When he passed a county government office at the bottom of the mountain, he saw the county government officials taking the stairs to clear the bird droppings on the head of the county government office. While cleaning, he was still complaining about those birds. Pigeons like to land on the eaves above this door. They poop here every day. Cleaning the bird droppings on the yamen door has become a chore for these yamen servants. Even while the government officials were cleaning up the bird droppings, birds and pigeons flew over and landed on the eaves above the door. The government officials below shouted twice, and the birds and pigeons flew away without shouting. It flew back again. Ha ha ha, what's the problem? I have a way to solve it, Xiaoping said directly after hearing the Yaman's complaint. Ah, what can you do? Seeing Xiaoping's disheveled hair, like a madman, with a special temperament, a government official asked. Go get the pen and ink and the ladder, and I'll make it for you to see. The pen and ink ladders are simple and can be found in the yamen. Those yamen servants also wanted to see Xiaoping's ability, and their curiosity led them to find the pen and ink and the ladder. Xiaoping put the ladder up on the wall under the eaves next to the county government office. He climbed the ladder with his pen and ink, and on the wall that was painted white under the eaves, he moved his pen quickly. In the blink of an eye, he drew an eagle owl. The eagle owl drawn by Xiaoping'an looked as if it was about to fly out of the wall. It was no longer lifelike and could be described. After the last stroke was drawn, the doves and birds that were still standing on the eaves of the wall were suddenly startled and flew away, as if running for their lives, and the surrounding sky became pure. Xiaoping'an came down from the ladder, laughed, threw the pen and ink to the yamen servant, and left. The government officials looked at the eagle owl that seemed to be about to leap out from the wall, and then looked at the birds that flew so fast that their shadows could not be seen, and they were all frightened. Even the people watching on the street were shocked. Why does that person look familiar? By the way, that person is Li Gejun, a painter. I haven't heard from him for many years. After receiving the news, the county magistrate came out of the yamen, looked up at the eagle owl painted on the wall, and then looked at the sky without a bird around. He was stunned for a while, and quickly asked the yamen servant to chase Xia. Safety. Before Xiaoping'an returned home and the government officials chasing him were still on the road, Jizhu's world was already shattered. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 117. You can search Golden Summoner Cool Notes novel on Baidu to find the latest chapters. In the room, Xiaoping'an slowly opened his eyes and first glanced at the time on his watch. From the moment he closed his eyes to now, the world beat took just over 8 hours. At this moment, the time outside is still around 7 p.m. on November 10th. After integrating the Li Gejun world beat just now, Xiaoping'an's secret mandala has a silver relief. The relief is the story of Li Gejun learning painting. On the entire relief, there are 3 colorful summoning positions, 1 for each cow, 1 tiger, 1 eagle owl. This perfect fusion increased Xiaoping'an's upper limit of divine power by a full 40 points, reaching a full 400 points. The distance from the body's dual mirror was only the last 20 points of divine power. Xiaoping'an seemed to be able to feel the ice-breaking restlessness coming from his body. Although he has withdrawn from the world of Jizhu, Xiaoping'an's entire consciousness and state at this moment are still immersed in the previous insights. Reality and G-Pearl are nothing to Xiaoping'an who does not have the mystery of the boundary. What a difference! Xiaoping'an spread his legs and started punching in the room. The whole person was jumping around in the room, just like in the world Pearl. With each punch and kick, it was like a cannon, exploding in the room. The next moment, Xiaoping'an Ping'an's body was like a ghost, running directly on the wall of the room, his body parallel to the ground, like a tiger running and jumping on the cliff, like a raptor fighting in the sky. At this time, he punched and kicked again, and the punches and kicks were torn. The crackling sound of the air was torn apart by him like cloth. With each punch and kick, the tension was like the strongest blow after a long whip is drawn out and the force is transferred to the tip of the whip. The skill of this punch and kick is no longer the state before Xiaoping'an, but the state after Li Gejun realized the Tao on the mountain. But it was Xiaoping'an who realized the truth. When the beating was complete, Xiaoping'an's body was as strong as a dragon or a tiger, and the coat on his body was directly shattered by the force on his body, revealing the tattoo of King Fudo on Xiaoping'an's back. Xiaoping'an took out the Black Cobra's long whip from the space warehouse. The long whip was in his hand. The eagle soared in the sky, and the changes were unpredictable. The tip of the whip that would have exploded before became silent at this time, as if it had disappeared. In just an instant, the long whip disappeared, and what appeared in Xiaoping'an's hand turned into a long knife. For a moment, the knife was as bright as snow. As Xiaoping'an slashed out, a faint sound sounded in the light of the knife. A roaring sound like a fierce tiger. Although Xiaoping'an's previous sword skills were sharp and fast, they could never reach this level. If Xiaoping'an at this moment was to use a knife against yesterday's Xiaoping'an, whether the two of them used knives or whips, yesterday's Xiaoping'an would be at this moment Xiaoping'an's men would be killed if they couldn't hold on for 3 moves. The realms of the two are completely different. 7 Tiger Styles. Xiaoping'an roared. In the first of the 7 tiger moves, the tiger descends from the mountain. In an instant, the sword is as bright as a tiger, filled with an aura of domineering and indomitable force. The second move, Tiger Roaring in the Mountain Forest, when this move was used, the sharp sword light flew around Xiaoping'an, and everything within 10 meters of Xiaoping'an was enveloped in the sword light for a moment. The third move is like adding more power to a tiger. With this move, Xiaoping'an seems to be flying in the room. His speed suddenly increases several times, as fast as lightning, like a meteor that cuts through the sky and reaches the sky with one sword. The fourth move is the Tiger's Gaze. When this move is used, the sword shadows fly around in confusion, which is dazzling to the eyes. However, in the confusion, there is a hint of murderous intention hidden, contained but not released, full of deterrence. The fifth style is a hungry tiger attacking an eagle. This style is a bit abnormal. Generally, the knife is used to attack from top to bottom, but this knife is struck from bottom to top, as if the world is reversed. The sixth position is the dragon crouching and the tiger squatting. This move is to counter-attack and defend. The sword light instantly converges and protects the whole body. The whole body is hidden in the sword light. The tiger is squatting on the dragon's plate, making it indestructible. The seventh move is to act as the tiger's assistant. The force of this move is soft, from movement to stillness. The light of the sword is stagnant, just like pulling countless invisible vortices. It flies around the room. Except for Xiaoping'an, it is completely unsightly. There is no secret to this move. These 7 tiger postures were what Xiaoping'an had learned in the mountains before. What he used his whip to perform just now was actually the 7 tiger postures, but the whip was different from the sword. The long whip was more changeable, the spirit remained unchanged, and the form was ever-changing. Before using the whip, Xiaoping'an performed the 7 stances of the tiger with his bare hands, but when he used his fists to perform them, it was a different scene. Xiaoping'an's movement and stillness were like the incarnation of a tiger. The aura on his body was extremely domineering, and his fists and palms were opened. In close combat becomes even more powerful. After enlightenment, as long as you have a pen in your hand, it doesn't matter whether you draw a tiger, a cow, or a bird. What you draw is actually God, the heart, and the Tao. The same is true for martial arts. When you reach the realm, it doesn't matter whether you have a weapon in your hand or whether the weapon is a long whip or a long knife. What you hit is also the spirit, the heart, and the Tao. Putting away the knife, Xiaoping'an's whole body was filled with steam, and his body and mind felt extremely refreshed. Who could have imagined before that, in addition to allowing Xiaoping'an to obtain 3 summoning positions, the world beat also allowed Xiaoping'an's painting skills to reach the level of the Mirror of the Dao, and also completed an unprecedented breakthrough in the martial arts, especially it was the latter that directly brought Xiaoping'an's strength to a higher level. Xiaoping'an couldn't help but think of the real experience of Li Gejun. Li Gejun in history later became a Taoist priest. Did he achieve enlightenment when he gave up everything and went to the mountains to paint tigers? Thinking that there was another world bead, Xiaoping'an put away his mind and continued to sit cross-legged in the room, preparing to fuse the world bead in one go. When he took out the world bead, there was some movement in the temple of the secret mandala. Xiaoping'an looked and saw that Kangja actually summoned 8 cows directly from the relief of Li Gejun. Summon a cow with 5 points of divine power. The 8 cows that were just summoned were taken away by 8 farmers. The newly added 40 points of divine power were also consumed all at once. Xiaoping'an was speechless for a few seconds, but thinking that half of his divine power would be restored tomorrow, and those summoned cows might be of great use in the secret mandala, he didn't bother to worry about it anymore. Xiaoping'an took out the second boundary bead. The second boundary bead flashed with several divine texts and beacons playing on the princes. According to the information that Xiaoping'an had previously obtained, this beat of the beacon playing princes seems to allow the summoner to master an illusion. Thinking of the illusion of beacon fire opera on princes, Xiaoping'an seemed to realize something. Could it be that this time, he was going to be King Yu of Zhou who loved beauty but not the country? A moment later, Xiaoping'an's whole body was once again surrounded by the light cocoon of the world pearl. Xiaoping'an opened his eyes and saw that he was sitting in a magnificent hall. He was sitting on the main seat. Under the hall, there were 2 rows of ministers standing in rows. "Your Majesty, the envoy from the kingdom of Zhan is here to see you," a waiter hurried to the mountain of the main hall and loudly announced. Xiaoping'an was looking at the ministers in the hall and turned a deaf ear to the waiter's words. The state of Huan is a bit interesting in ancient China. This little-known vassal state in history was the feudal state of Chu Lai, the second son of Shaokong in the Xia dynasty. It lasted for more than 1,400 years, from the Xia dynasty to the Shang dynasty, and also it was impressive enough, but the country of Zhou was not very kind to King Zhou. Later, it was the country of Zhou that caused King Zhou to rebel. "No," Xiaoping'an waved his sleeves and said directly. The ministers in the main hall looked at each other and exchanged glances. Several ministers looked worried, but no one spoke. Since Bayesi entered the palace, the king has become more and more ignorant of the government affairs. He indulges in sensuality every day, and becomes more and more angry. It's ridiculous. Compared with other major military and state affairs, not seeing a special envoy from the kingdom of Zhou is actually not a big deal. "Where is Father Guoxi?" Xiaoping'an suddenly asked. As soon as he finished speaking, among the ministers below, a minister with a pale face and no need to lower his eyebrows suddenly walked out. "I am here." While saluting, the minister secretly looked at Xiaoping'an's face. He just happened to catch Xiaoping'an's gaze, and quickly lowered his head seemingly respectfully, with a humble smile on his face. But that glance just now made Father Guoxi feel inexplicably shocked. "Got a clever idea. Is this Birdman Guo Shifu?" Xiaoping'an curled his lips and showed a smile on his face. "This time, I can finally get over the addiction of killing traitorous ministers." The palace guard stepped forward. Xiaoping'an asked again. "Wow!" With a sound, all the guards in the hall took a step forward and saluted Xiaoping'an. The ministers looked at Xiaoping'an with strange eyes, wondering what Xiaoping'an wanted to do. "I had a dream last night, in which I met a golden god. The god said to me, 'Father Guoxi, you are a very loyal minister,'" Xiaoping'an said to Father Guoxi in a pleasant manner. Guoxi's father was overjoyed all of a sudden, thinking that good luck was coming, and said loudly, "I am loyal to your Majesty, and you can learn from heaven and man." Yes, Xiaoping'an nodded, "I feel relieved when you say that. The man of God also told me that there will be a great disaster in the world in the future, and I need to choose a loyal minister to burn sacrifices to heaven and go to heaven. Once, I can avoid future disasters in the great Zhou dynasty. The man of God said that you are the most suitable, so today you can go to heaven for a walk." Father Guoxi was still smiling just now, but when he heard this, he was about to pee with fright, and his face changed drastically. Your Majesty, I am loyal to your Majesty." "So you are the most suitable," Xiaoping'an pointed at Guoxi's father and said to the palace guards, "Prepare firewood, light the fire outside the main hall, and send Guo Iking on his way. I will watch with you all." Yes, several sturdy guards walked up directly and dragged Guo Shifu out of the hall without saying a word. Your Majesty, your Majesty." Father Guoxi was paralyzed by fear, crying like a ghost and howling like a wolf. "Whoever wants to go to heaven with Guo Iking, just ask. The more loyal ministers like this are sent to heaven, the more stable our empire will be." Xiaoping'an glanced at the ministers who wanted to stand up. The expressions of those ministers changed, and they quickly lowered their heads, not daring to say another word. Just 10 minutes later, a tall firewood pile was lit in the square outside the main hall. The firewood pile was poured upstream and was immediately lit. Guo Shifu was thrown directly into the firewood pile while screaming. It has ascended to heaven. This world beat is too simple for Xiaopingan. If you don't have fun with it, it will be too boring to be King Yu this week. The latest chapter address of Golden Summoner, TTP. Read the full text of Golden Summoner at TTP. Golden Summoner text download address, TTP. Golden Summoner mobile reading, TTP. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this reading record, chapter 117 Good Things Come Into, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Golden Summoner, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 118. The boundary pearl of Fenghuo Opera Princes increased the upper limit of divine power in Xiaopingan's secret mandala by another 10 points, and finally reached 410 points, which was only 10 points away from the 420 points in the dual realm, one step away. After the world bead was fused, there was a black iron relief in the secret mandala showing King Zhou playing a beacon show on the princes. The beacon smoke in the relief was like a living thing, rising into the sky from the beacon tower on Lishan Mountain. Watching King Qin urinate as he ran. The army of princes and King Zhou hugged Bao Si and laughed. The beacon smoke in the relief is the summoning place where illusions are gathered together. When the relief appeared, Xiaopingan's consciousness already contained some information about how to perform illusions. The magic power consumed by the summoner's illusion is not fixed. Instead, it consumes different powers depending on the illusion. Moreover, this illusion, just like the beacon that teases the princes, does not come out of thin air for no reason and without restraint. You can change whatever you want to change, and create any illusion you want, but there must be some realistic existence and realistic scenes as the basis. The mystery is difficult to describe in one word. Xiaopingan in the room suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at the time again. Only 10 minutes have passed. Thinking of the illusion skills he had mastered, Xiaopingan pinched his hands and pointed at the ground. The light and shadow on the ground moved, and the black dragon came out. This black dragon is not that black dragon. It seems to be alive, but it can't make a sound. It looks exactly the same as the black dragon. It ran around Xiaopingan twice with its tail wagging, but there was no sound at all. Xiaopingan reached out and touched the black dragons. The illusion image suddenly disappeared. Illusion deceives the eyes. It cannot deceive the ears, nor can it deceive perception and touch, nor can it be used directly to fight and kill people. However, if this technique is used at the right time, even if it can only deceive the eyes and vision, it should still be of great use. Xiaopingan thought for a while, smiled slightly, opened the door and walked out. The speed at which I can fuse the world beads is already astonishing. It is estimated that if I get another world bead, I will steadily advance to the dual realm. After entering the dual realm, the gap between my physical combat power and that of an ordinary summoner will be completely opened. In terms of physical strength, Mo Yanshao and Yan Duo are both at or below the 1 UN realm. Of course, this is related to the fact that it was not easy for everyone to obtain the boundary pearl in the past. This time, the world is in chaos and monsters are raging. Monsters can be killed everywhere. It will be easier for the summoners to obtain the world pearl, and their strength will increase faster. Maybe Mo Yanshao and Yan Duo will also have a huge improvement in strength at this moment. That guy Yan Duo has been out of contact for so long, so he should be fine. He doesn't look like he's short-lived. As soon as he walked out of the room, Xiaopingan saw Manzijin standing at the door of his room, standing guard for him. When the two of them were together, in addition to working together to kill monsters, Manzijin also unknowingly regarded himself as Xiaopingan's bodyguard and bodyguard. When Xiaopingan rested, he would give Xiaopingan stand guard. Are you awake? Xiaopinggan asked. Manzijin smiled slightly and scratched his head. I used to be drunk for a long time, but this time I woke up after only sleeping for a few hours. It must be the effect of the body strengthening pill. I feel that my tolerance to alcohol has improved. A big piece. Haha, let's go, let's move things. Xiaopinggan said to Manzijin. Manzijin nodded. Xiaopinggan just took a look at his secret mandala. The speed of time in the secret mandala seems to be different from that in reality. Several other spatial warehouses newly built by several craftsmen and farmers are actually ready for use. It's just right. Load bombs inside. Although the earliest space warehouse can still be used, a lot of things have been accumulated in it. The elixirs and the equipment and food that he put inside only accounted for a small part. The most things piled in the warehouse in that space at the moment were the remaining things after the magic rats and magic fire spiders and magic liquid spiders refined the medicines. The alchemist only used parts of the monsters' bodies, not all of them. The remaining things of the monsters were processed by the craftsmen in the secret mandala. The pieces of demon rat skin and the demon rat's claws were used by the craftsmen in the secret mandala to make leather armor. The hard shell and limbs of the demon fire spider are used to make hideous and exaggerated armor, spears, and sharp bone arrows. The craftsmen in the secret mandala also use the demon fire spider and the demon fire spider to make them. The silk threads in the silk sacks of the liquid spiders create some extremely tough and strong ropes. A strange and highly corrosive liquid is extracted from the body of the demon liquid spider. It also extracts various liquids from the body of the demon fire spider. There are few super burning substances like asphalt. Xiaopingyan didn't expect these things to be used at once, so they could only put them in the original space warehouse, occupying a large part of the space warehouse. Xiaopingyan walked around the ammunition depot, taking thermobaric bombs, cloud explosive bombs, thermite incendiary bombs and individual soldier cloud explosive bombs and other large-scale killers and weapons to his space warehouse for free. It filled most of his newly built space warehouses. Those drunken soldiers slept all day and did not wake up again until the next morning, the morning of November 11th. Today is the night of the full moon, the day that summoners look forward to the most. Xiaopingyan gave each soldier stationed here 5 rune bullets, 10 body pills, and left a lot of food that could last those soldiers for a year. When it gets dark, those soldiers in the soldiers' reluctance, Xiaopingyan and Manzijin left the ammunition depot and returned to Xuanhuan. The physical strength of those soldiers before was still somewhat different from that of elite soldiers of the special forces like Manzijin. However, according to the effect of the body strengthening pill, after none of those soldiers took 10 pills, their physical strength and physical fitness should be comparable. It's comparable to Manzijin from a few days ago, and even slightly beyond it. The sky outside the ammunition depot has turned dark, and a bright blood moon hangs in the sky. The way back along the way is very smooth. The divine power in the caisson of Xiaopingyan's secret mandala is moving rapidly like stars. Condensed. Just on the road, Xiaopingyan gathered and recovered more than 70 points of divine power. Along the way, they encountered 2 magic fire spiders and 3 magic rats, which were easily solved by Xiaopingyan. After returning to the base of the Xuanhuan Logistics Special Equipment Division, Xiaopingyan took out several cloud-burst bombs and thermobaric bombs, and together with Manzijin began to modify them, installing timed detonation switches on these killer weapons. The two of them worked hard all night on the modifications, and finally modified the killer weapons. After a night of recovery, the divine power in Xiaopingyan's secret mandala suddenly increased by 205 points. In addition to the 135 points of divine power in his previous mandala, by the morning of November 12th, the available divine power in Xiaopingyan's secret mandala was already reached 340 points. Xiaopingyan summoned 10 elite slave soldiers and 10 fireball spells and placed them in the secret mandala for backup. Then he took some divine power pills and primary divine pills to directly replenish his divine power. After making various preparations, Xiaopinghan and Manzijin discussed the action plan and began to recharge their batteries, waiting for the arrival of the evening. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 119. The night gradually deepened, darkness enveloped the earth again, and the entire Xinquan city was shrouded in a hazy blood-colored moonlight. Yesterday was the 15th day, today is the 16th day, and the moon on the 15th day is 16 full. Tonight, the visibility in Xinquan city is higher than in the previous nights. On the streets of Xinquan city, among the ruins of tanks, various vehicles, and building ruins, groups of magic fire spiders and magic rats can be seen wandering around the streets from time to time. The huge demonic fire spider and the astute demonic rat would raise their heads from time to time, looking at the blood moon in the sky with cold and bloody eyes. The whole city was in deathly silence, and the slightest movement would attract the surrounding monsters. On the contrary, it is the two permanent space cracks in Xinquan city. After the last outbreak, until today, those two space cracks have been extremely quiet, and nothing has been spit out from them. Just after 11 o'clock in the evening, a cloud layer drifted in, quietly covering the bloody moonlight, and the entire city was instantly shrouded in the shadow of a large cloud layer. At this moment, on the top floor of a ruined building in the south of Xinquan city, Manzijin, carrying a single soldier cloudburst launcher, emerged from the ruins. Manzijin swallowed his saliva and used the launcher's scope to focus on a two-story building more than 2,000 meters away. There were 2 magic fire spiders around the building. He also saw 3 magic rats just now. Got into that building. Now. Xiaopinghan's order came from the phone earbud next to his ear. Manzijin pulled the trigger, and the individual cloud bomb flew towards the 2-story building with a little fire. Boom. The power of a single soldier's cloud bomb was so terrifying that Manzijin only saw a flash of red light in the 2-story building 2 kilometers away, and a violent fire burned the building to the ground. There may not even be any scraps left of the demon rat inside. Even the body of a demon fire spider close to the outside of the building was instantly torn apart by the explosion of the cloud bomb. Only the demon rat slightly farther away was destroyed. The shockwave and fire of the explosion knocked it to the ground and blew out more than 10 meters. As soon as the individual cloud explosive bombs were fired, Manzijin had already dropped the launcher of the individual cloud explosive bombs, and at the same time pressed a detonation remote control in his hand, just as the fire of the cloud explosive bombs had not dissipated. Almost at the same time, violent flames erupted in the west, east, and southeast directions outside Xinquan city, and the roar of the explosion shook the entire city. The entire city was alarmed, and the monsters closer to the explosion point ran toward the explosion point crazily. It was so exciting. It had been a long time since there had been such a big movement. Manzijin was secreting adrenaline like crazy. Looking at the monsters rushing towards the explosion point, Manzijin quickly carried the launcher and retreated to a safe hiding spot. Tonight's task has been completed. The next step depends on Xiaopinghan. The restless giant spiders and demon rats in the city were alarmed by the explosion, and rushed towards the place where the explosion occurred. Many streets were suddenly empty of monsters. Xiaopinghan seized this opportunity, and while using his remote viewing ability to stare at the situation on the street, he rushed towards the spider's nest. Yes, the purpose of the explosion was to divert the tiger away from the mountain, let the monsters in the city flow, and create opportunities for Xiaopinghan to approach the spider's lair. Having been here once last time, Xiaopinghan was familiar with the place this time. The monsters along the way were mobilized. Xiaopinghan used remote viewing to avoid those monsters and ran around the city like flying. When he encountered monsters that he couldn't avoid, he summoned an elite slave soldier and used the elite slave soldier to make a noise. Then attract those monsters from the street to other places. But soon, Xiaopinggan approached the spider's nest, entered the building, and rushed towards the ventilation vent of the building. Demon rats, 4 demon rats appeared in front of Xiaopinggan, wandering in the corridors of the building. Xiaopinggan took out a long sword and rushed over like lightning. After the demon rats reacted, the long sword had already cut open the head of the demon rat, and his body swept over like a strong wind. Crossing the walkway, he moved the tiger down the mountain and opened the way with his long sword. The sword flashed forward and cut directly through the vital points of those demon rats. Just like a tiger attacking a sheep, he killed those demon rats with overwhelming force and at the same time killed the demon rats. The body was received in the space warehouse. Xiaopinggan's speed was so fast that after killing those demon rats didn't even have time to scream. Soon, Xiaopinggan rushed to the vent. He opened the cover outside the vent and quickly got under the vent. Because of his previous experience, Xiaopinggan was faster this time. In just a few minutes, he got through the ventilation duct into the huge underground shelter full of spider eggs where he came last time. Nothing is any different from a few days ago. It's just that the spiders guarding below seemed to be affected by the explosion outside, and there were more spiders. Xiaopinggan, who was lying in the pipe, quickly took out the things he had prepared. At the vent of the pipe, he first placed several bundles of tear gas bombs set with timed lighting. Then, he took out the cloud explosive bombs and thermobaric bombs from the space warehouse, and while retreating into the pipe, placed those time-set killers one by one in the ventilation duct like sausages. The ventilation ducts in the underground shelter are extremely strong. They were designed with various needs in harsh war environments in mind. The ducts are on the walls and solid iron frames and can easily withstand Xiaopinggan's removal from the space warehouse. Those big killer weapons often weigh tons. The thickness of the pipe is just right enough to put things like thermobaric bombs and cloud explosive bombs inside. Xiaopinggan placed more than a dozen thermobaric bombs, dozens of cloud explosion bombs, and a bunch of countless thermite incendiary bombs in the underground pipes. As if they were free of charge, they directly used bombs to destroy the ventilation pipes. After being filled up piece by piece, the underground ventilation duct became a huge blasting tube, and then it quickly and quietly retreated from the pipe. When Xiaopinggan came out of the building, he restored the ventilation duct to its original state, and then he quickly ran towards the other 2 places. As before, after consuming several elite slave soldiers, Xiaopinggan lured away the unavoidable monsters along the way. He followed the same method and simply stuffed a bunch of them into the ventilation ducts of the other 2 underground shelters. Thermobaric bombs, cloudburst bombs and thermite incendiary bombs. It took more than 3 hours for Xiaopinggan to finish this. At around 3 o'clock in the morning, he quickly evacuated from the last underground shelter full of demon rats. As soon as Xiaopinggan withdrew from the city, the tear gas canisters he deployed in the 3 underground shelters were detonated simultaneously. Tear gas has no explosive power. It just makes a soft bang in the pipe, and a large amount of smoke spreads from the ventilation duct into the underground shelter. Those big spiders are extremely sensitive to the disturbance in the underground shelter. As the smoke from the tear gas canisters entered the underground shelter, the big spiders around the shelter were alarmed, thinking that something had happened inside the shelter. Countless big spiders moved flooded into the shelter. All the large spiders in the nearby streets were swarming toward the shelter. The situation in the other 2 shelters was the same. As soon as the smoke from the tear gas filled the shelter, all the magic rats and magic fire spiders rushed towards the shelter. Xiaopinggan quickly arrived at the meeting point outside the city agreed with Manzijan. The meeting point was on the upper floor of an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was more than 5,000 meters away from the nearest spider lair, and further away from the other 2 underground shelters. "How's it going?" Manzijan breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Xiaopinggan coming back. "It's all set up. The tear gas bombs have probably been detonated at this moment. The monsters on the streets around the shelter rushed into the shelter, ready to watch the show. Xiaoping'an said, lying on the roof with Manzijan, watching the movement in the distance. Xiaoping'an has the ability of remote viewing, and can see more clearly from the perspective of the sky. The magic fire spiders, magic rats and magic liquid spiders on the streets around the shelters were all agitated and rushing towards the 3 underground shelters. Looking from the sky, the monsters were densely packed and pouring into the shelters. I don't know how many there are. Another 2 minutes passed like this. Xiaoping'an and Manzijan both looked at the time on their watches. When the underground shelter was crowded with monsters. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Xiaoping'an looked at his watch and counted down silently in his heart. Rumble. The vibrations of a train passing by on the rails were heard underfoot. The vibrations came from underground, and could almost be felt throughout Xinquan City. Then the next second, both of them felt that the air around them began to flow, seeming to be surging in the direction of the shelter. When the bomb exploded, the huge negative pressure generated in the underground shelter began to appear, and the place where the shelter was located suddenly became 3 negative pressure centers in the city. After a few seconds, dazzling fire burst out from where the shelter was. The building was shaking, all the glass within a few kilometers was shattered, every ventilation pipe opening and underground entrance where the shelter was located was spraying fire, the road was torn, the building collapsed, and a dazzling mushroom cloud rose from the ground. A violent shockwave swept through most of the city center. The whole city of Xinquan was shaking like a bumpy train. People who don't know must think that 3 volcanoes are about to erupt underground in Xinquan City. 3 dazzling lights and mushroom clouds, like 3 torches extending from the ground, lit up the night sky of Xinquan City at this moment. Under the power of this explosion, not to mention a few magic fire spiders, even steel lumps would be melted and then exploded into ashes. The 3 explosion points are the 3 centers where monsters gather most densely in the city. At this moment, no one knows how many monsters were wiped out. Xiaoping'an was shocked by the power of the explosion. After a while, Xiaoping'an discovered that gunshots, explosions, and the light of the summoner's fireball technique reappeared in more than one place in Xinquan City. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 120. Damn it, the 87th Legion didn't call, so what happened with the explosion? Didn't you say the Legion came? How do I know? I thought it was the troops calling. Could such a big movement be caused by ordinary people? And haven't you noticed that there have been a lot fewer monsters on the street? On a certain street in Xinquan City, 2 summoners, one fat and one thin, were running away on the street full of ruins, communicating while running. More than 20 magic rats and 2 magic fire spiders were on both sides. A frantic pursuit behind the individual. At this moment, the remaining monsters in Xinquan City are almost going crazy, extremely restless and violent. Amidst those 3 loud noises, I don't know how many monsters were killed, but it can be clearly felt that the number and density of monsters in the urban area have become significantly thinner. A burning spider silk flew over, and the 2 fleeing summoners jumped away. The burning spider silk instantly penetrated a car parked on the roadside. The car suddenly exploded, and the dust and air waves blew away. The 2 fleeing summoners were disgraced. The fat summoner casually threw a fireball, igniting a demon rat that was rushing towards the 2 of them, turning it into ashes, and then continued to run away. But before they ran very far, the faces of the 2 summoners instantly turned pale. Because just in front of them, more than 10 magic rats and a magic liquid spider appeared. At this moment, there was no way forward and there were soldiers chasing behind them. The 2 of them were blocked in the middle of the street. What was even worse was that there were open shops on both sides of the street. Even if the 2 of them could rush to the shops, there is no way to escape, and you will die faster. Am I, Fen Yudao, going to die in the mouths of these monsters today? I have worked hard for so many years to finally become a summoner, and I don't have a girlfriend yet. The thinner summoner looked up to the sky and sighed, with tears in his eyes. What the heck, we're going to fight these monsters. We'll fight to the death one by one. Come on, use your skills to squeeze out the bottom of the box. Maybe we can even rush out. The fatter summoner cursed directly and touched his body. Took out a shotgun and fired wildly at the demon rats and demon liquid spiders in front of them. Of course, the shotgun couldn't kill the demon rats and the demon spiders, but the shotguns that flew out one by one also beat the demon rats that rushed over until they were covered in blood and screamed, which delayed them. The speed of action of the demon rat. The thinner summoner also tried his best. With a wave of his hand, 5 soldiers were summoned. These 5 summoned soldiers rushed directly towards the demon rats in front, fighting with those demon rats. Together. The fatter summoner fired his gun and shouted, "Draw the ground as a prison." The ground under the feet of the 2 oncoming demonic liquid spiders glowed with yellow light, and the demonic liquid spider was suddenly yellowed. The light was bound to the ground and could no longer rush over. It could only spit extremely corrosive slime spider silk at the 2 summoners angrily. The slime spider silk flew out, and the 2 summoners quickly dodged it. One of them threw himself on the ground next to him. The fat man didn't care about his image and just rolled away. The slime spider silk did not wrap around the 2 summoners. After falling on the ground was cut and corroded by spider silk, leaving a deep mark. The ones blocking the road in front were temporarily able to withstand it, but the pursuers from behind were about to come. Although the demonic liquid spider imprisoned on the ground can no longer move for the time being, its demonic liquid is very lethal. Moreover, the demonic liquid spider is huge and blocks half of the road. If you want to rush over, you have to fight with it. The demonic liquid spider performs a face-to-face dance. At such a close distance, it is almost impossible to avoid the demonic liquid spider's demonic liquid spider silk and the attack of the 2 large pincers. Just when the 2 summoners were in a desperate situation, suddenly, the restless demon spider stopped moving, and a layer of white frost condensed on its body, and even the demon spider that was about to spit out from its mouth suddenly stopped. The liquid spider silk was frozen. The next second, Xiaopingan's figure was like a big bird, stepping on the back of the magic liquid spider, and flew out from behind. While he was in the air, the long knife in his hand spilled out a blade of light, slashing the 2 people. The head of the demon rat that rushed towards him was chopped off. As soon as it hit the ground, the sword flashed like a horse, and several more demon rats were beheaded under the sword. "Master!" The 2 summoners who had survived the desperate situation were so excited that they almost cried, but the pursuers behind them were approaching. The 2 summoners rushed towards Xiaopingan in a hurry, shouting for help. Xiaopingan passed the 2 summoners and rushed towards the more than 20 magic rats and 2 magic fire spiders chasing them. After easily avoiding the 2 flame spider threads, the 2 basic versions of the mini Xuanhuan summoned by Xiaopingan flew out. Without any accident, they instantly extinguished the fire and life breath of the 2 magic fire spiders and froze them. Without the magic fire spider, the remaining 20 or so magic rats are just food delivery to Xiaopingan at this moment. With one move, the tiger roared in the forest, and the sword light in Xiaopingan's hand flew out. The heads of the 5 demon rats that had just been surrounded were split open and they fell out. Under the siege of the demon rats, Xiaopingan was as flexible as cooking smoke, and the attacks on his hands were fast and fierce. All the demon rats that came close to him were struck with one knife. The more than 20 demon rats were killed by Xiaopingan in the blink of an eye. Pingan killed half of them by himself. The 2 summoners, one fat and one thin, had just run to the frozen demon spider and wanted to escape. When they heard the screams of the demon rats coming from behind, they both turned around and were stunned. In the blink of an eye, the flames on the 2 terrifying demon fire spiders were extinguished. Like the demon liquid spider next to them, their whole bodies were covered with cold air, covered with frost and frozen to the ground, while the chasing demons most of the rats have been killed. Some demon rats have even turned around and prepared to escape. Powerful. Too strong. These days, the two summoners have only seen people being chased and killed by these monsters and running for their lives, but they have never seen anyone who can chase and kill these monsters. Moreover, the few escaped demon rats did not escape. Xiaopingan rushed forward, slashed one at a time, and killed the demon rats in the blink of an eye. The battle ended in just a moment. 2 magic fire spiders, a magic liquid spider, and 20 or 30 magic rats were actually killed by a summoner under their eyes. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, neither of them would have believed it. Originally, I wanted to run away, but at this time, I was too embarrassed to run away again. When the two summoners saw that Xiaopingan had killed the last demon rat, they waved their hands and the corpse of the killed demon rat disappeared. This shocked the two summoners and exchanged words with each other. Gave a shocked look. Space equipment. This summoner actually has space equipment? Xiaopingan ignored the shocked eyes of the two summoners and took care of himself and took the body of the demon rat he killed into the space warehouse. These magic rats are all elixirs. At this moment, the spatial warehouse in Xiaopingan's secret mandala has been divided into 5 by Xiaopingan, covering an area of more than 35,000 cubic meters. The 5 spatial warehouses are numbered with A, B, C, and D, namely Warehouse A, Warehouse B, and Warehouse C number library. From today on, I will use the space warehouse more and more, and it will become more and more difficult to hide this ability. Xiaoping might as well stop hiding this ability of his and openly disclose the space warehouse he owns. Ability demonstrated. Concealed abilities can indeed be used as a trump card and come in handy at certain critical moments, but more often than not, the power and abilities revealed in the sun will be more awe-inspiring and can bring more things. It's like some countries can manufacture a few nuclear weapons, but they can only hide them. However, several major countries on the Security Council can openly disclose the number of their nuclear arsenals without fear of others knowing. Moreover, judging from the current situation, between concealing his ability and hoping that one day he can use it, and directly obtaining the most needed elixir materials, Xiaopingan will definitely choose the latter. If he can't even pass the current level, let's talk about the future. There is no point in anything. In front of the two summoners, Xiaopingan received the bodies of the 2 magic fire spiders into the space warehouse. From now on, all the corpses of these monsters will be received in Warehouse A. Seeing that even the body of the huge demonic fire spider was taken away by Xiaopingan in an instant, the two summoners looked shocked. How much space equipment was needed to fit it in? Xiaopingan quickly came to the 2 dull-eyed alchemists. Without saying a word, he directly took the bodies of the demon spider and the several demon rats he had killed to the space warehouse, and then pointed to the other ones on the ground. The corpses of several demonic rats. Do you want the corpses of these demonic rats? The two summoners, one fat and one thin, looked at each other and shook their heads together. They couldn't take this thing away even if they wanted to, and they had no use for it. Xiaopingan waved his hand, and the bodies of the other 6 demon rats on the ground were directly collected by Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan then took out an elixir bottle. As soon as the elixir bottle was opened, a strange fragrance wafted out. When the 2 alchemists smelled the smell of the pill, they swallowed hard. This smell was too familiar to them. It was a first-level magical pill. Seeing Xiaopingan swallowing 6 divine power pills at once like eating beans, the 2 summoners' eyes widened. Damn, this is not taking the divine power pills as divine power pills. In front of 2 people, Xiaopingan finished the elixir, showed off his wealth, and then waved his hand and threw 2 small bottles filled with glass to the 2 people. There is a beginning god pill in each bottle, and a beginning god pill in each bottle. The magic elixir can restore 5 points of divine power. Although it's not much, it's better than nothing. Just think of me exchanging the corpses of those demon rats with you. The two of them looked at the bottles of ingredients in their hands with strange expressions on their faces. How could the demon rats be able to exchange elixirs? There is also such a good thing. The face of the fat alchemist suddenly changed, and he looked at the street behind Xiaopingan, the phantom monster. Xiaopingan turned around fiercely, and M appeared in his hand instantly. With 3 shots, 3 phantom monsters that had just rushed out from the street were killed by 3 talismans more than 70 meters away. When the bullet hit, the fire flashed, burned, and turned to ashes in the blink of an eye. The next second, when he heard the gunshots in the distance, Xiaopingan didn't say a word, and rushed towards the distance in a flash, leaving the 2 summoners who were still in a daze here.